What up guys, today I'm going to be reviewing the current state of PvP while commenting on the upcoming class changes that will take effect on the next reset. Starting with the Demon Hunter, the Hunt's damage over time effect no longer deals an additional tick on application. Damage over time remains unchanged. This is yet again another The Hunt nerf, only this time they are reducing our burst potential. So the Hunt currently hits about as hard as a Harm's Warrior Mortal Strike. The difference is that one has a 90-second cooldown and the other has a 6-second cooldown. This fact speaks for itself, so let's move on. Soul Rending Leech bonus reduced by 40% in PvP combat. I'm assuming they are referring only to the bonus 10% on demon form and not both passive and active 10% effects. If this is just a demon form leash, I'm fine with it. It is unnecessary, makes absolutely no sense, but I'm fine with it. However, if this is referring to both leash effects, then they would not only be just nerfing us, they would also be butchering our class identity at that point. Let's hope that's not the case. Glimpse damage reduction reduced to 35%. Well, damage reduction is not even top 3 on the reasons why we use Glimpse, so even though this is, again, unnecessary, it is also fine. It's pretty much a slap on the face once again, just because some dev does not know how to fight a Demon Hunter. Essence Break's damage bonus for Chaos Strike and Blade Dance reduced by 37.5% in PvP combat. My oh my, this is way too far. With this, there goes our burst potential. Demon Hunter is now going to be a melee affliction Warlock, but doing a lot less damage than a Warlock would instead, while being way squishier and of course not having a 40-yard range. Next up, Soul Rend damage reduced by 16.7% in PvP combat. A straight punch to the face right there. Soul Rend is our main source of damage. This is a major damage nerf for us. I would be okay with either the Essence Break nerf or this one, but not both. Demon Hunter has been nerfed over and over again since release. Yes, we were overpowered at the start. I myself have put Demon Hunter in the S+ tier in my tier list video, but since then we have by far been nerfed way more than any other class in the game. They have heavily nerfed our healing, our burst and our sustained damage. I am happy to see that Shadow Priest is also getting nerfed, but what about the other S+ tier classes? Feral Druids, Warlocks, Rogues and Mages. Well, let's jump right into that. Feral Druid damage increased by 3%. Okay, it's clear that one of the PvP devs is a Feral Druid main and has been trying and succeeding to keep the spec from getting nerfed out of their god tier throne. Feral already is one of the highest damage specs in the game for PvP. This buff is probably targeted for the PvE scene, but they did not nerf them back in the PvP section. So this is a 3% flat damage buff for PvP as well. For lack of a better word to describe this, I'm going with ridiculous. Now to the Warlock. Affliction damage has been buffed, same thing as with Feral, pretty ridiculous. However, we are not seeing as many Affliction Warlocks anymore, but it is not because they stopped being an S+ tier spec. The reason we have not seen that many of them is because Demonology is an even stronger spec, sharing the god tier throne with Feral Druids and Rogues. Destruction got buffed, that's fine, it did need some help, however, I would prefer to see them making Chaos Bolt more of a threat instead of buffing their consistent damage, as that is their spec identity. Now to the god tier spec, Demonology. Fellstorm PvP damage bonus reduced to 150%, down from 400%. This ability was single-handedly AoE one-shotting people. It was quite ridiculous and I'm happy it is getting nerfed. However, they are increasing Demon Fire damage by 75%. Well, fixing one broken thing and making something else broken is not really fixing anything at all. However, Demon Fire damage can be counterplayed. If you don't know what this is, it is referring to the Tyrant damage ability, which can be LOS'd, and thus counterplayed. Demonology will still be a god tier spec, this will help, but not by much, and a good Warlock will know when to use his Tyrant, which will now do 75% bonus damage. So yeah, still pretty absurd of a spec. Now to the Mage. These fire changes are fine, they won't make a difference in PvP. However, the Frost changes make no sense for PvP combat. I know that Frost is underperforming in PvE, but guys, it's been 18 years, have you still not figured out that you can simply nerf the same class in PvP combat by the same amount you are buffing them in general, in order to keep balance? Come on please, it's not that hard to understand the concept. Frostbolt damage increased by 20%, Frost already has some of the best consistent damage in the arena, this is just adding up to it. Ray of Frost damage increased by 40%. Well, Frost Mage, welcome to the God tier throne. Here are your friends, Mr. Lock, Mr. Druid and Mr. Rogue. 40% bonus to Ray of Frost is way too much damage. Everyone that was not specced into it already will now be for sure. This will hit so hard that people will be getting killed through pillars left and right. Way too much damage for sure. Glacial Spike damage increased by 10%. Glacial already hits very hard, especially if you spec into Mastery. Frost Mage in Dragonflight generates so many Fingers of Frost procs that you can Glacial Spike about as often as a Destruction Warlock Chaos Bolt. Also, in the PvP section, they are reducing the scaling from Mastery by about 25%, so the overall damage should remain the same. Arcane got a little bit of a nerf, nothing special, so moving on. Now we have Assassination Rogue. Improved Garrott's damage bonus reduced by 40% in PvP combat. Good, all rogue specs are hitting way too hard for a class that can reset the fight infinitely at any moment they choose fitting. Every nerf they get is not enough, you can nerf their overall damage by 30%, and I guarantee you that Rogue will still have a place in the S tier. Iron Wire's damage reduction debuff now has a PvP duration of 4 seconds. Iron Wire is a talent that makes Garrott silence the target when used from stealth. Silenced targets do 15% reduced damage for 8 seconds. The damage reduction effect will now last for half of that, about 4 seconds. Any nerf to this class is not only welcome, but never enough. Now to the Windwalker Monk. Thunderfist damage reduced by 40% in PvP combat, and Skyrish critical strike chance reduced to 30%. This was needed for so long, they sure did take their time to do this, but finally they nerfed the 2-button AoE one-shot with no possible counterplay from Windwalker Monk. And then, to compensate, they buffed Blackout Kick, Tiger Palm and Fist of Fury's damage by quite a bit. Make no mistake guys, this is not a nerf to the spec, it is very much the contrary. This is a buff to a good Windwalker Monk and a nerf to a bad Windwalker Monk player. If you have gotten your 2400 achievement by pressing these 2 buttons, then I have bad news for you. However, if you are a good Windwalker Monk player, this is amazing. Our overall damage output will be higher, our pressure will follow the same pattern. Windwalkers should be happy with these changes. Now to the Shadow Priest. As I said earlier, this spec has gotten some heavy damage nerfs, much deserved as the spec was in the God tier since release. It should now drop to the top of the S tier classes. Shadow's utility is still overwhelming, so don't make the mistake of thinking that the class is any less dangerous. All this will do is give you more time to react and actually have a chance to play the game and press buttons before you get nuked down by a Shadow Priest. Now to the Warrior. Defensive stance now reduces damage done by 15%, was 20% in PvP combat. This changes nothing. Blizzard is not making the right changes to Warrior, and it complements my previous statement that they are not respecting class identities at all. All that Arms Warrior needs is Ignore Pain back, but instead they kept buffing their damage, and now Arms is kind of a glass cannon, just like the Demon Hunter. However, Mortal Strike is hitting for such absurdly high numbers that Arms damage output is actually some of the highest in the game. I have seen normal Mortal Strike hits go for higher than 150k damage. Now imagine how high the critical strikes go for. Yep, it's pretty much a one-shot. I remind you that this is a 6-second cooldown ability and that the current build actually refreshes that cooldown. Yes, I agree that Ignore Pain should come back, but warrior damage output must be heavily nerfed when it does. And that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. And as always, stay safe, stay strong, and I will see you in the arena.